Hello, everybody. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are doing well. Oh, I need to mute my TV, my thingy. Hello, everybody. I hope you are. Boom. Okay, now you can't hear me. I see there's a little bit of a delay. Still getting used to this. Hello, everybody. You're Angela. You are driving and listening. All right, you've got my first question, and I love this. Thank you. We're going to jump right into it, I guess. Your question is, and go ahead and put it on the screen so people can see it. What is the market value of a property that is assessed at $90,000? $90,000 of the assessed value is 80% of its market value. Why divide and not multiply? All right, so I think this is going to be best explained if I go to my iPad. So here we go. So the problem in and of itself said, let's see. It says we're looking for the market value. And we know that the assessed value is 90,000 and that the assessed rate is 80%. So you're wondering, why do we multiply and not divide? And that is because if we're looking at this, the formula would have been market value times the assessed rate equals the assessed value. So what that means is we can say, hey, we're looking for this times 80% equals $90,000. So to solve this, we'd have to get rid of this 80%. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing, and we'd have to divide over here. And so divided by 80%, divided by 80%. So your answer would be $90,000 divided by 80%. And that gives me, I feel like I should be able to do that in my head, but $90,000 divided by 80% is $112,500. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Yes. Hello, Anna. Hello, Soledad. Yes. Yep. So it's divide in the book. Yeah, you are dividing. You are dividing 90,000 by 80%. Does that make sense? That is the answer. So they just went straight to this right here. They're not showing you why, but this is the formula it's based off of. All right. Okay, let's see. Our next question. You have a question, and this is from Andromeda. Okay, you have a sub-agent. Is a sub-agent only when there is no buyer's agent? So this one is kind of weird to answer. I think that when you say the word sub-agent, I'm going to change colors. When you say sub-agent, you get two options. You get option number 1 and option number 2. So option number 1, option number 2. Sometimes what happens is, let's say you have a seller and they are with ABC firm, and then they've got this individual salesperson that is working for that seller. So let's call this person Jake, and this is ABC Realty. Well, you're also going to have a buyer. And maybe that buyer had somebody from XYZ Realty show houses, and let's call that individual agent Mary. Okay? Now, this would usually be single agency. And the first thing that we can say is that the individual agent, Mary, and the individual salesperson, Jake, they are not who was hired. ABC or XYZ, whoever this broker is, or if you're in North Carolina, this BIC, this is who they hired. So the actual agent is ABC Realty. The actual agent is XYZ Realty. And then that means that Mary is a sub-agent of XYZ. And Jake is a sub-agent of ABC, because it's an agent of an agent. So the person that the contract is between is the seller and ABC. That is going to be like the number one thing. Like that's one way to look at subagency. However, and let me duplicate this and copy. It should be way up, copy. And then let's see if we can paste. Is it going to allow me to paste? I don't know if it's going to allow me to paste. Paste. There we go. Boop. Move it over. Make it bigger. Sorry, guys. Boop. All right. So now we got the same exact answer, except, boop. Going to get rid of this and that. And this, kind of make it cleaner. So another way to look at this is pretend that forever, whatever state you're in, whatever's going on, that the seller did hire ABC Realty, but the buyer refused. They absolutely refused. They don't want XYZ to regulate them, to represent them. The buyer is like, no, you cannot represent me. So one option is that the buyer would be all by themselves and the XYZ would be a second firm for the seller. The seller has two firms. There's the seller's listing firm, because the seller listed, this property was listed by them. And this is called the selling firm. But both of them owe fiduciary duties to this seller. Now, that is how it works in some states. Other states do offer something called transaction brokerage, or, no representation, which makes things a little bit different, but it really depends on your state. Either way, when somebody says sub-agent to me, I need to know, are you talking about the first way we're talking about sub-agency? Are you talking about how the buyer's being represented and that seller has two agents and then that buyer has none? Because we would call XYZ Realty and in this Mary, they would have the term sub-agent. So let's see. Let me check my chat. Does that make sense? Hopefully so. Hey, Jamie, it's okay. Hey, Tar Heels 93. I'm a Tar Heel too. Did you graduate from Carolina in 93? I love that. We're a Tar Heel born, we're a Tar Heel bred, and when we die, we're a Tar Heel dead. So I lost you at subagent. Anna, did I lose you at subagent 1 or did I lose you at subagent 2? So Anna, tell me, do you understand subagent 1? Or anybody who's watching, if you understand subagent 1, put a 1 in the chat. If you understand subagent 1, put that 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat. Oh, I didn't mean to make that happen. Let's see. Put a 1 in the chat. Okay. Oh, hey, Christine. Okay. So, Anna, you didn't understand number 1. So let's start with number 1. Anna, if there was a listing agreement Let's say there was a listing agreement between the seller and who? Whose name goes on that in that agreement? Is it Jake's name that goes in this agreement right here? Or is it ABC Realty? Now, the answer is it would be, oh, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to erase. This is going to be ABC Realty, right? You didn't hire the individual salesperson, you hired the broker. Now, this brokerage, ABC Realty, could have 15 different people there. And whoever the 15 different people are, these are salespeople. Since the listing agreement is between the seller and ABC Realty, you don't work. Not everybody works directly with the broker. If they're working with a salesperson, which in this case was Jake, Jake is an agent of ABC Realty, and ABC Realty is an agent of the seller. So Jake is a sub-agent. So let me know this makes sense. And this is going to, Anna, that is the definition. Sub-agency is this idea that you didn't hire Jake, you hired Jake's broker, making Jake a sub-agent. So, Anna, I want to make sure you understand that one because that is a term you need. Okay, you got that part. Awesome. So, option number 2 is where you have a seller. That seller signs a listing agreement with ABC Realty. They are the listing agent. They owe fiduciary to the seller. All right. Now, let's say, and especially now with these changes to what has to happen if you're a realtor, this buyer, change colors here, this buyer is shown homes by XYZ Realty. XYZ Realty just shows the house. That doesn't make them an agent of the buyer. You have to create buyer agency. And the buyer could say, no, you can't represent me. If XYZ is not representing the buyer, then there's 2 choices. If not the buyer, then either they represent the seller or they're a transaction broker. It really depends on the state you're in. Some states don't have transaction brokerages or something. There's different names from a facilitator, things like that. Some agents don't let the seller have 2, or some states don't let the seller have 2 agents. But generally, in the states where people are asking me this question, if the seller has one agent that's listing the property and another agent that sold the property, then that makes XYZ a second seller's agent. The seller has 2 brokers that work for them. ABC Realty, who listed the property, XYZ Realty, who found the buyer. But the loyalty, the obedience, the skill, the care, the diligence, all of that in this second scenario all goes towards the seller. So, does this make sense to everybody? Go ahead and give me something in the chat that lets me know that it is making sense. Hey, Joy. Yes, no, maybe so. I can't tell if it's making sense. C. Yes. Yay. Thank you, Soledad. Thank you so much. And who was it that asked me this to begin with? It was I'm just looking back. So Andromeda, hopefully that makes sense. Does the buyer pay both? No. The buyer would not be paying for any body because the buyer is by themselves. Think of this. Make it blue and let's make it small. This is that wall of separation. That is a wall of separation. Nobody is representing the buyer. The buyer does not have to pay anybody because nobody is team buyer. And to answer your question, Anna, when people talk about subagency in the second scenario, they're referring to Mary and XYZ Realty. That's just the term they use. Oh, we're the subagent. We are the second seller's agent. So yes, Andromeda, if the seller wants to, the seller pays for both. But the seller doesn't have to pay for both. If the buyer refuses to have XYZ and Mary represent them, and the seller says, nope, I don't want you either, then XYZ Realty is out. Somebody's got to agree to pay them. And if the buyer doesn't want them on their team and the seller doesn't want them on their team or part of this deal at all, they're just done. They don't get paid. Oh, good, Soledad. I'm so glad you liked watching the 7 hour. That one is for the last one, right? Yes, Soledad. XYZ found the buyer, but you can find the buyer all you want. But if you don't get them to agree that you can represent them, you may not get paid. That is why a lot of states you do sign buyer agency. If the buyer says, I don't want you as my transaction broker, I don't want you involved with me in this deal at all, then you showed those properties for free. That is why. So that you could I don't even know what I was going to say. That's why some states have transaction broker instead of dual agency. It's just an option. It depends on the state. Hey, Caroline. Hello, hello. I'm so glad you could join us. Okay, good, Andromeda. I'm so glad you are liking that one. And Soledad, I think the last 7 hour was that my national review? Was that the national? That one, I don't know if everybody can see. I have to think about which one it is. Yes, Andromeda, the subagent only exists if the seller allows it. Exactly. So not everybody may have access to that 7 hour Soledad. I think the closest one would be the 5 hour. Yeah. Right. So, what other questions do you have? Oh, Andromeda, that's why I'm here. This is why we do this, so that you all have the opportunity to ask me questions. And subagency is right, the one I did last Friday Was that last Friday I did a 7 hour national? I think it was 2 Fridays ago. Or if it was just this one. 7 hours? Did I do 7 hours? Yeah, I'm not, it may not be that you can try sharing it, but it may not be still up. Because if it was a 7 hour, that would have been some Saturday, like 2 Saturdays ago or something. You have another question. How can a broker do the best for the client if they are fiduciary for a buyer and the seller? Ah, that is an excellent question. So you're basically asking, how does dual agency work? Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that dual agency, right? This is what you're asking. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that dual agency is not legal in every state. There are some states where you cannot have two clients because of what you're exactly saying. You owe the buyer fiduciary duties, loyalty. You owe the seller fiduciary duties, loyalty. How can you be loyal to both? Because if you're loyal to one, a lot of times that's going to hurt the other. And that is why it's not legal in so many states. In the states where it is legal, the buyer and the seller lose sole representation. So that means there's no skills, so they don't get any help with negotiations or pricing, etc. And they don't get any advice. All they do get is confidentiality. So that means if you're this agent, if there's something you knew about the seller that could help the buyer get a lower price, you can't tell them. If there's something about the buyer that would help the seller get a higher price, you can't tell them, because you have to keep the confidentiality of both sides. And if you tell something to one side, it's going to hurt the other. So they lose this, hey, somebody is only looking out for me kind of thing. All right, let's see. Next, let's see. Lots of realty places already may have the seller, but they want to find the buyer with your own realty. Yeah, that can happen sometimes. And then you said, can I explain when a PB or BIC cannot be involved in dual or designated agency? So for people who may not know what that means, a PB stands for a provisional broker, which is basically the same as a salesperson. Now, what she is asking is absolutely North Carolina specific. And the answer is a PB cannot be with their BIC in designated agency. And I have a slide on that. You're going to see near the designated agency slides where it says, oh, it can be a BIC and a full broker. It could be a full broker and a full broker. It could be a provisional broker and a provisional broker. It can never be a BIC and, their PB. There can't be that relationship there. One really can't tell the broker certain things because they may use it against the buyer. Yeah, and even if you do tell the broker can't tell it. Even if there is, because you do get confidentiality. So if it's dual agency, you have this dual broker, and then you've got a seller on one side and a buyer on the other. There is this wall. Information can go in, but it cannot go back out to the other side. There's this wall of separation, this confidentiality there. So that hopefully that helps. And hello, big city man. You're in Oklahoma and you do have dual agency. There you go. I like that. I like it a lot. All right. What other questions do you have? How else may I be of assistance? I'm going to take a sip of water because A, I know there's a delay, and B, I'm thirsty. And thank you for whoever gave me the likes. I appreciate that. Like the video so that more people can see it. What you got? What you got? No more questions? Let me see. Sometimes I have to pop out the chat. It comes a little faster there than it does here. Okay, there we go. Which monies need to be deposited immediately? So once again, this would be North Carolina specific, and it's all cash and everything but security deposits and earnest money checks. Or any type of earnest money. You thought commissions are negotiable. Why is it that it says not to talk it down? Well, I mean, they are negotiable. They are negotiable, but you're talking about your pay. Think about if you hired somebody to do plumbing at your house. If that plumber comes out and the plumber says, hey, I can do this job for $1,400. Sometimes you would be like, oof, that's just a little bit out of my budget. Any chance you could do it for $1,200? That's a negotiation. So most people are not going to walk around if you're the plumber talking about, yeah, I'll do it for less. I'll make less money. No, you ask for what you feel like you deserve for the work that you've done. If you choose to go lower, that's on you. But it's a negotiation. There is no set price in the world. Everybody, every buyer has to, negotiate it with their broker. Every seller has to negotiate it with their broker. That's just the way it is. You don't understand how an agent can commingle monies if everything is always addressed to someone other than the agent. Okay. So, the way to answer this question is realize you might have an EMD check, and that check is made payable to ABC trust account. And that money is put into a trust or escrow account. Now that money is sitting in this account. It's just sitting there. And in theory, it should come out when it goes back to the buyer, or if the buyer defaults, it would go to the seller. Right? However, let's say that this ABC needed, they were just $50 short on their light bill. The $50 could come out to pay the light bill, but that's stealing money. Right? Or commingling money would be, hey, let's say ABC Trust has this money in an account, but then they also get a tax refund. Remember, by definition, an escrow account says the account is mine, but the money is not. So if this money, this tax refund, goes into the trust account, that's a lie because that is your money. If it's a trust account or an escrow account, it can't be the person who owns the trust account. It's somebody else who owns the trust account, and then somebody else is putting their money in it. Does that make sense? Just let me know. Hey, Troy, you said the accrued interest on an assumed mortgage will appear on the settlement statement as the accrued interest to an assumed mortgage would show up as a buyer credit. A buyer credit. And a seller debit. Do I have any test taking tips for y'all? Just take your time and make sure you don't get confused with the trustors and the trustees. You thought the accrued interest went to the trustee. I mean, you're talking about in North Carolina that could say in your actual deed of trust, it could say here in this state, the company is getting, the trustee is keeping the monies, the interest. For some reason, whenever you wrote earnest money, it always went to the title office. Okay, and the title office, yeah, the title office would be, there's attorneys in the title office, so the same thing. Why a debit to the seller and a credit to the buyer? So if it's an assumed mortgage, so this is March, and this is February, and this is January. Well, let's say the closing, and let's say this is April. Excuse me. Not y'all, sorry. There's no cross T in April. There we go. So we know on March 1st, let's say this closing is on the 31st. On March 1st, that seller paid for February. And on April 1st, then what's due for March? Whatever is the interest is for March is due on April 1st. Well, who owned the house the majority of this time? The seller. So that money is not due at the end of March, it's due at the beginning of April. So the seller takes that money and gives it to the buyer. So the buyer can pay later. That makes sense? So we're going to debit the seller whatever he would have ended up paying on April 1st, because now the buyer's going to have to pay it because mortgages are specific liens. Hopefully that helps. Yay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Nothing? Nothing? I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. I got packing to do. Can you believe this time next week, I will be more than halfway to Michigan? I still got a lot of packing to do. I'm going to try to get Maria to do this for you all next Friday and the Friday after next. I'm going to try. We'll see. She's got a full-time job, or see if I can get somebody to do it for you. I'll just give them access to my YouTube page. But I love doing this with y'all. So you tell me, what do I need to cover for you? Who's got a question? Who's got a question? How much property management percentage is on the test? We have not gone over much of that. So, Anna, it depends on your state. Every state has a different a percentage amount, and you can find that amount unless you're in California or New York. You can find that amount on your state's real estate exam candidate handbook or something like that. Ah. Oh, my vroom vroom time. Do I have the CDs ready? Girl, I do. I do. So, can I explain the different types of appraisals? Yes, I can. And for this one, I think it's easier if I go. Ooh, do I have the appraisals chart here? Let me see. Math appraisals here. All right. So this is your appraisal methods. These are the three different types of methods. You've got the sales comparison approach, you've got the cost approach, and you've got the direct income approach. Right? It's kind of like when you get driving instructions and the map tells you, oh, you could go this way or you could go that way. That's what this is. An appraiser could do one, or they could do all three of these methods and say, hey, I wanted to use the information from all three. But basically, what happens is the appraiser is going in and saying, how do I figure out how much this house is worth? Most appraisals, like 80% of appraisals that you do, are going to be that first option, sales comparison approach. That is based off of that principle of substitution that says, hey, why would I want to pay $460,000 for my home if two houses down, the exact same house just sold for $400,000 2 months ago? Like what happened that my house should be worth $60,000 more if they're actually identical? So the sales comparison approach is all about the fact that you find comps. Then you say, oh, well, the comp sold with these things, but if it had had the same features as the subject property, it would have sold for X, and then that gives you your land value. Sorry, not your land value, your value in general. What I was going to say is the sales comparison approach is the only way to come up with the value of land. So that's the sales comparison approach, otherwise known as the market data approach. The cost approach is going to be when you find the cost to rebuild, then depreciate it. Right? So in the cost approach, first you have to take the improvement and you got to rebuild it. Are you reproducing it so that it's going to be exact, or are you replacing it so it's going to be similar? So are we using drywall, or are we using plaster because it's an old house? Like you're literally rebuilding the house. Well, then you know what the price is new, and what we're pricing is more than likely not a new home. So we've got to take monies off for depreciation, and that can happen for one of three reasons. Oh, wait, sorry, I skipped something. Then we got to price it. I skipped something. Sorry, in my mind I talked about it. Then you got to price it. You know the difference between, okay, perfect. I'm putting carpet down in my basement in my new home, right? And I know it's going to be that basement is about 1,400 square feet. So if I go someplace and they're like, oh, Candace, it's $200 a square foot for carpet, or not $200, $2 a square foot for carpet. All right, well, it's going to be 1,400 times, $2 is going to be $2,800. Okay, boom. I find that out. But if I'm saying it's about 1,400 square feet, couldn't it be 1,325 or 1,492? Like it's about 1,400 square feet. So that is the square foot method where you're just kind of loosely giving a range. The unit in place method is when the appraiser says, hey, well, beyond like what is the price per square foot, let's see. Oh, the kitchen, if this is what we're doing, should be this amount. The electrical should cost you that amount. The plumbing should cost you this amount. So you're looking at the different units of construction and you're, ballparking how much you think it's going to cost to build. And this is usually going to be for things that you don't have good comps for, like a church or a school or something like that, where there's just not going to, or dome home, my personal favorite. There's just not going to be enough good comps. And then after you know what it costs to rebuild it, then you depreciate it. This is where this side has math and this side is more, I don't want to say intellectual. Can I spell? I can't spell intellectual, which says I'm not intellectual. So, I'm like, why is it not erasing? Because I'm in the wrong program. This is for smart people. Smart people who are licensed. They figure out how this age straight life thing goes. But we know in the breakdown method, when we're trying to depreciate it, you could either do physical deterioration, which is curable or incurable, functional obsolescence, which could be curable or incurable, and you've got economic obsolescence, which is always incurable because it's an outside factor outside of the property affecting the value. So then once they do one or more of these values, that add it up, and then that's how they come up with the total value. So that's a very short version of it, but remember I have a longer version about the appraisal methods on my YouTube page. All right. Let's see. What do I have now? Hopefully, Jasmine, let me know if you need more than that. Let's see. You were trying to buy a house for yourself. When the inspection came back, there we go, and it showed active termites, so you backed out. Andromeda, I'm not saying you did a bad thing or a good thing. What I'm going to say is termites are a thing. So for me, it would not be, well, are there active termites? It's how long have the termites been active? How much damage have they done? So if this was a seller who gets their house checked twice a year, then there's probably only so much damage. I would have the termites treated, and if there's not a lot of damage, just buy it. But also, if it had been going on for years and years, you might have made a good choice. So only time will tell on that one. All right, what else? Should the brokers have told the seller something before they put the house on the market? Oh, you mean in your case, Andromeda? I mean, if they knew about it, yes. And Anna, where do you find that handbook? You're in California. So Anna, unfortunately, California nor New York do a handbook the way the other states do. So you can try looking at the the California DRE. They have a little bit of a layout, but not as laid out as other states. There were tunnels everywhere in this. So yep, then you got to go. Smith has obtained a $75,000 mortgage loan at a fixed rate of 30 years. The monthly principal and interest rate will be $325. How much interest will he have to pay over the life of the loan? So don't forget also, these are videos that I've done on my YouTube page. So, but let's do this one and let you all see it. Let me pull this over so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So there is a $75,000 mortgage at 13% for 30 years. And, I can put it back. I wonder if there's a way to make it stay. Let me see. Can I stay or can I go now? Well, it'll pop up for a little bit. Y'all will get a little bit of it there. For 30 years, and the monthly principal is 830.25. So, what I know is that I'm going to make 12 payments in a year. And I'm going to do that for 30 years. So 12 times 30 is 360 total payments. And since I know my payment is 830.25, I would know how much I end up paying if I make all $360 in payments. So 360, that's 36,000, 360. Ah, come on, Candace, calculator. 360 times 830 equals. I got 298. 800. Do that one more time. Oh, I don't think I did the 25 cents. Never mind. So let's do 830.25 times 360 equals 298. 890. I don't remember if I got that the first time or not. That's how much you're paying in total principal and interest. But if we know the original mortgage was for $75,000, if this is the total principal, all you're going to be left is going to be the interest that you paid over the life of the loan, which is $223,890. There you go. All right. Is it possible for an appraisal to be wrong? Yes, because it's just somebody's opinion. Oh, good, Caroline, you got the same thing. It is just somebody's opinion, so it could be. It could be different. I wouldn't say wrong. They're just gonna have to show how they came up with the numbers. And so, without doing all that math, Joy, the question would probably be, I think that question says he lives there, and if he lives there, he might not have to pay taxes because of the exemption. No, is Stu. Stu has something going on. So Stu, who we love, we love Stu. I don't know what's going on, but something's going on, and he's just taking some time. So he will be back as far as I know. He's not going anywhere. They just had to have somebody step in because, like you all know, I'm moving and I'll be out for 3 weeks. And then Maria's job, just got a little busy. So then with Stu being, we just had to have some outside help come in. But I'm not going anywhere. I will be back in at least 3 weeks. That's the max. Like 4/13 is my return date. That looks like a B, right? Doesn't it? Okay, let's try. Let's see if I can do better. That's not it either. 4/13, because I gotta pack up everything the next couple days. Then I gotta, my stuff has to get to Michigan. I leave next Friday, and then I gotta make sure that I have cable and utilities and all of those things. And Nebraska just had that snowstorm, so I had taken off work until the 13th. But yes, Stu's not gone forever. So there you go. Right. Anything else, guys? Anything else I can help you with? Because Lord knows, whew, I got a lot. Oh, so I do have a question for you all. Somebody had asked, actually, and by a couple of you somebodies, you all know that when I do a national prep, like crash course, mine are supposed to be for 4 hours, but they end up being for like 7, 8, or 9 hours. And even then, I am struggling to get everything in. And I know for some of y'all, it's been years since you've taken the class or you took it with no teacher. So you really couldn't ask questions, or, you're just struggling. I'm thinking I can't get credit for the state, but I was thinking about doing like a 20 to 25 hour national review. So it's like two of these, basically doubling this. And I can go a little bit slower and allow you all to ask more questions. So I'm thinking over 2 or 3 days or 4 days, like I don't want it to go really more than 2 weeks, like maybe, something from like 5 hours on Saturday, and then 5 hours on Sunday, and then 5 hours on Saturday, and 5 hours on Sunday, and really just breaking it down so that if you're somebody who's struggling with finance, you could go in and you could come to the whole thing if you just wanted a good refresher, but it's going to be more than just a normal, quick review. It'll be an in-depth review. That is a long crash course. And so I didn't know if that is something you all would be interested in. Is that too long? I mean, because usually when I do my crash courses, they end up being 7, 8, 9 hours long, which people like. However, and I could shorten it. I mean, if you wanted, I could just plan. It'd have to be more money, but I could just plan for like a 10-hour crash course, which even 10 hours, usually if I do like one for a school, I do 2 8-hour days. And so that right there is 16 hours. So I could break it up, but I didn't know if you all thought, like, again, if it's been a while, you just might need somebody to redo all of land use controls. Like, and that's not something I go into a lot of depth in the 4/7 to 8 hour, because I can't. And there's other things I could go into on those other chapters. I just don't have time to do it. It would be online. It would be online, but it would be a Zoom so I can see you. You could ask questions, and that's why I was thinking like 5 hours each day. So you're getting a good amount of information, but you also then would, be able to come back and ask questions. And so I'd have like a pre assessment that you would take before class so that you would know what you needed to ask if you do it, like if you needed to. Make sense? All right. So, unless there's any other, just, think about that. That is a long crash course, Jasmine. And then how much would you pay for it? How much would I charge for 20 hours? So, I don't know. It's just something I've been rolling around in my head, because a lot of people will ask me, hey, can I take, the pre-licensing course? Well, you can't get credit for it, but like the other day I had somebody who had taken their course 3 years ago and now they were studying again. Well, it's been 3 years. They kind of need to hear it all again. And then, but schools won't let you. So you don't want it to be, you don't want it to be like the same length as a regular class, but at the same time, a little bit more than what you just get in a crash course. So I'll keep doing it. It's like you need help with financing and transfer of property, right? So you could do that, and then you would know if I go to these 4 days, then I know I'm going to get a review of everything and a more in-depth view of financing and transfer of property. Like that would be the idea. All right, guys. Well, that's all I've got for today. Remember, I will be back not next week, but in a couple of weeks because moving. But keep your things, y'all. And I know I don't usually say this, but turn on notifications. because, or at least check my page, because if I get the internet set up early and I don't have to work again till the 13th, I might just come on here and do some freebies. Just do it freebies. So Bean, you said you took it online and had no teacher, so that part would be helpful. That's exactly what I'm talking about, because it's so hard to ask questions and get those. Like, don't get me wrong, I love, there are some great courses out there, but sometimes it would be, it's just you want to ask questions. Yep, see you in the morning. And when would that be? I don't know. Like, Soledad, I'm kind of rolling around with it. I'd have to see how many people were interested, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I would need to have at least 5 or 6 people to do it. So, if y'all were like, hey, I know some people, we could do that, then because it's got to be worth my 20 hours, because that means I can't teach other jobs if I do it. So, works for me, works for you. All right, guys, I will let you know if I do anything in the notifications. Otherwise, I got to go pack. I got to go pack. Y'all want to come help me pack? And why did you let me collect all this stuff? Right? So, and also remember next week on Prep Agent, you do get Joanne. She's new. Let me know how you like her. Be nice, guys. Be nice. She may not have music and funds and songs and games, but she is very knowledgeable. So I will see you all next month. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.